No other conference in the world that has these many speakers from around the world. So we are very proud to say that this event is the largest in AppSec. We do have speakers that are well known, as you know from the agenda, from around the world that have come here to talk to you today and present new information. So I'm really happy to see this kick off. We do have a few standby speakers. I'm actually looking for Chris Weistapel and for Chris Eng. If you guys are here, please go over to the speaker booth. We do need your assistance. We also have a lot of press that'll be here today. Don't fear the press. This isn't Black Hat. This is OWASP. So please embrace the press. Let them know. Talk to them about OWASP. Tell them about the things that we do. It's good to get the word out there. If you're a blogger, please blog up the event. Let them know what the speakers are talking about. Good information gets out. That's what we're all about, is kind of community awareness. So please do that. So for the agenda that you have in your pamphlets and handouts, there's three main rooms. There's the ballroom, which is obviously this room. There's the Skyline room, which is on the main floor of the hotel, which when you come in, when you come in, you're going to make a right, if you will, not make a left. You made a left probably to come to the ballroom. You're going to make a right. So that 15 minutes between speakers, if you're going to be changing tracks, simply go up to the main level, walk past the bar, stop if you like, and then continue on to your track. The Skyline room is up there, as well as the Midtown room. Those are the other two tracks that are going on upstairs. Okay. A couple quick thank yous, and we're going to kick off our keynote. Definitely would, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Tom Brennan, for those who don't know me personally. This is definitely a larger than usual New York City meeting. Typically we have meetings about 200 people here in New York. We have the largest chapter in the world for OWASP. So this meeting's a little bit bigger. So I'm looking forward to having a really good event, and it's pretty much status quo for the New York crew, just with more people. For the OWASP Foundation members who you'll meet in a moment, but before that I would like to throw out special thanks and assistance to people in the following order. Kate Hartman, who is overworking our registration table right now. She's been instrumental in pulling off this event, helping us coordinate it logistically and actually, run it. So when you see Kate, say hi and please give her a nice thank you. She's been working crazy on this event as well as the following people: Steve Antonowitz, Tom Ryan, Brian Pfizer, Peter Perfetti, Doug Shin, and Brandy Moore. And of course, we have tons of volunteers here that are helping out, including you. Hence, if you want to help out, just ask if there's something you can do. I'm sure we can find something for you to help out with. Okay? With that, we're going to start kicking off our keynote. So if need be, get a cup of coffee. Again, please move over. Leave no spaces between you and the person next to you. This room will get very crowded very quickly. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name's Jeff Williams. I'm the chair of OWASP, and I'm going to give a little presentation here about what I see as software's promise, and then we're going to hear from some other members of the OWASP board. So let me go ahead and get started. The board is Dennis Cruz, Dave Wickers, Sebastian Deerslayer, and Tom Brennan. Deer Snyder? Sorry. Okay, so I first discovered software in San Francisco about 25 years ago. I was at the Exploratorium and they had a display of Conway's Game of Life. And when I saw it, I got that first sense of how software, we can use software to create whatever we want. David Gerlenter calls software a virtual machine. He means like a nuts and bolts physical machine, but infinitely malleable. Since that day, I've loved software. I hate computers, but I've loved software. And I know we're only scratching the surface of what we can do with software. We're going to see some truly awesome applications that can extend our human capabilities. That, to me, is software's promise. But we're at a tipping point. As we speak, a major financial organization is building software to create an online space where their associates and their clients can work together to do transactions in the cloud through their browsers. It's fantastic. It's like you have this virtual monogamous relationship with your bank in cyberspace. But there's a problem. Your bank application is really sleeping around with a whole bunch of other browsers. And to be honest, your browser's sleeping around with a whole bunch of web applications, and nobody's using protection. So here's the problem. As we make more and more connections, the threat surface, the attack surface, goes up exponentially. At the same time, the value of the assets that we're putting into these applications is dramatically increasing. And we're using technology that's so new that nobody has any real idea of whether it's secure or not yet. And lastly, to be quite honest, we're really struggling with some of the basic security stuff, the simplest security problems like input validation. So put all that together and you see that we're creating an enormous amount of security risk that's already hampering software's promise. So I'm torn. On the one hand, we're starting to build the kinds of applications that I always dreamed of, but it only is going to work if everyone trusts each other. So let's confront some of the brutal facts facing application security. Here in this room, we understand something that the rest of the world is only vaguely understands. We know we're taking crazy risks with software. We know that in the past 15 years, the threat has rocketed forward while the way we build software has essentially remained unchanged. So here it is. You and I are failing. We know that the software market is producing insecure code, and we haven't done anything really to change it. So I'm here today to challenge you. What can we do to change our market, minimize our risk, and fulfill software's promise? So I'm going to suggest a few things that we can do to get you thinking about it. So one thing we can do is we can get our priorities straight. Many organizations spend most of their application security budget on hacking, basically, doing pen tests and scanning. Now, there's nothing wrong with those things. They're important, but we're not going to hack ourselves secure. We can perform all of our activities in the context of an organizational risk model. With that understanding, we can prioritize what we do not by what's easy for a tool to find, but by what actually matters to organizations. We can guide organizations to focus on the most critical problems in their most critical applications. And when we find a problem, we can't just report it and walk away. We have to dig in and find the root cause of that problem so that we can eliminate it from the organization. That's the path to improvement. So second thing we can do. We can set a useful research agenda. We've got an amazing pool of brilliant security researchers around the world. But we spend an awful lot of time searching for really obscure vulnerabilities that would make Rube Goldberg proud. The really hard problems in application security are going largely unaddressed. Things like, what are the security rules for these new architectures, for these massively distributed, in the cloud kinds of architectures? How are we going to deal with identity and access control and even canonicalization in those kinds of applications? We can also create new tools that take a positive approach to security, verifying that applications do the right thing and not focused on finding negative vulnerability signatures. So talking about research, I need to thank all the participants in the OWASP Summer of Code. We've got 31 new projects coming out in about a month, and they're all amazing. New tools and new documents. Dennis is going to talk about that in a few minutes. So a third thing we can do. We can turn application security from a black art into a science. It's still a black art today. It's very difficult to become an application security expert, and a lot of the reason is that a lot of the knowledge required is really in the heads of a lot of the people in this room. What we can do is we can organize and link and simplify all that knowledge and make it accessible to people. OWASP has hired a technical editor. Maybe not everyone knew that, but we are putting a massive amount of effort into refactoring all the information that we have, and we're producing these books. So we're really trying to make OWASP not just a wiki with everything in the world related to application security, but a high-quality knowledge base. If you get a chance, go find Leo Cavalieri. He's here, and he's working on the OWASP Application Security Desk Reference program. It's like the physician's desk reference. It'll contain all the foundational knowledge related to application security. So you can download that now. It's like 1,000 pages, and you can check it out on Lulu. Or find Juan Calderon. He's here, and he's working on translating all of OWASP's information into other languages. We've got the OWASP Top 10 translated into about a dozen languages, and he has single-handedly assembled a team to translate all of our books into Spanish. If you stand around long enough, Dennis Cruz will probably come up and start talking to you about the OWASP in School program. We're going to facilitate free one-day lectures on application security at universities around the world. Okay, a fourth thing we can do. We can enable secure coding. So there are some voices in the blogosphere that suggest that we should give up on secure coding and fall back to vulnerability scanning and virtual patching with WAFs. That is one possible future, but think about it. I think that future is going to be one of chasing vulnerabilities and managing blacklists and being frustrated. I want a future where security is a primary requirement for applications, where we follow building codes, and we have a strong set of standard security controls that we can rely on, and where development teams want our help and aren't resentful of security. We need much more focus on building and less on breaking. Breaking things is easy. If you want some real street cred, go build something secure and tell everyone how you did it. Find Arshan Dabirziagi, he's here, and talk to him about his anti-SAMI project. He picked a very hard problem, and he went out, came up with a great solution, and published it at OWASP, and now companies around the world are using his approach to secure their websites. Even Microsoft has copied his approach and is building it into their anti-XSS library. We should be putting more effort into the small set of security controls that we can use to address the large set of possible vulnerabilities. So if you're interested in standardizing controls, I'm easy to find in a crowd, and I like nothing better than to talk about OWASP's Enterprise Security API project. Another thing we can do, we can fix the software market. But buying software today is like buying drugs off the street. You get no assurance, crazy risks. Our developers are totally addicted to new code. So you can find them. You talk to code junkies out there, just jonesing for their next fix of a Java library or an Ajax framework. And who knows? The code you buy might be laced with PHP. We can't go on blindly trusting applications. As long as security is invisible, market forces basically guarantee insecurity. Before I buy software, I want some visibility. I want to know what language it's written in, and how many lines of code it is, and what libraries are used by it, and what tools were used to build it. I also want to know a little bit about who built it, and what security controls does it contain, and how is it tested. We can create standards for this stuff, for buyers and consumers of software to communicate about what's in the software. If you can, find Mike Boberski. He's running OWASP's Application Security Standard project. We're going to define 4 levels of assurance for applications. That standard should be out very shortly. Another thing we can do, we can work with technology groups. So if you use MITRE's CWE as a rough guide on how many types of weaknesses there are out there, our score today is 695 to 0. We haven't stamped out any of them. We can make security mistakes a lot less likely to happen. We can reach out to the groups that are responsible for various standards and technology like HTML and CSS and JavaScript and Flash and Java and .NET and Rails, and help them build easy-to-use, high-assurance security into their platform. Talk to Arshan about his OWASP Intrinsic Security Working Group. He's been reaching out to these groups and providing them, his team has been providing recommendations on how they can improve security in their product. And the coolest thing is it's working. I'll give you an example. We've formed a connection with the Java Servlet 3.0 team, and we've been giving them recommendations, and they are going to eliminate the possibility of header injection, response splitting. They're going to make massive improvements to cookie security. They're going to add a set of encoding libraries to the platform so that developers can do proper output encoding. And we're even talking to them about building CSRF token protection right into the Java Servlet spec. A last thing we can do. We can make application security into a movement. If we work together, we really have an opportunity to change things, because no one else is going to do it. Look around at the people in this room. If application security is going to be a widespread success, it's going to be because of the hard work of the people in this room. Let's compare our progress against the Agile movement. We have conferences. They have conferences. We've got tools, and they've got tools. We've got process, sort of, and they have process, sort of. But we have this awesome business driver that I think is much more urgent than what Agile has. We should be more influential than Agile, yet they've made much deeper inroads into software development organizations than we have. Really, I think a lot of what we're doing is just preaching. We can make a manifesto for application security that everyone can get behind. And we can define a clear set of principles and activities to back that up. Essentially, we need to tell people what a responsible application security program looks like. Otherwise, how is anybody going to know whether they're doing AppSec or not? If you get a chance, talk to James McGovern. He's working on an OWASP project to define what a responsible application security program looks like. And you should see a draft of that pretty soon. It's not too late. I'm really inspired to be here today with the leading experts in application security and some of the owners of the world's most critical applications. We do have a choice to make. None of these things that I've laid out that we can do are going to happen unless you get involved. I'm asking you to join in and help us achieve software's promise. It's easy to start a chapter or start a project or even just share what you know in the wiki. So even if you don't agree with anything that I've said, please join us and help us get it right. We really can't afford not to. So thank you. I'd now like to introduce the other volunteer members of the OWASP board. Tom Brennan is going to talk about, Dave's going to go first? Okay, Dave's going to talk about our efforts to organize and make the world's application security knowledge public. Then Tom's going to talk about how OWASP works and how to get involved. And Dennis Cruz is going to share OWASP's research initiatives. So thank you all very much for coming. I look forward to meeting all of you, and have a great conference.
So there's a lot of guys in the back of the room that need seats. So if people on the middle can squish in, maybe make or come forward. We don't bite, so try to make room, please. Okay, so I'm just going to talk for a few minutes. We've been doing a lot of work at OWASP in the last year or so, trying to improve the quality of the projects that we have. OWASP for years has been building this huge body of knowledge. We've been building all these great tools, all these great documents. Moving to the wiki a couple years ago has really caused us to significantly expand the amount of knowledge that we're collecting, managing, and maintaining. And we realized, we've got a lot of projects, but it wasn't clear which projects were mature and sort of ready for prime time, and which projects really need some additional work to get them to be more readily usable by organizations. So that's what we've been focusing on. So we're trying to focus on improving what we have and also disseminating that information to the world that needs it. So obviously this conference is an example of our outreach to the community. The establishing the chapters program that we established, 3 years ago, I guess, or 2 years ago, is blossomed. And so we're going to just talk about that very, very briefly. So we have a lot of resources that we've made available to the world. And we're also making all this available free and open, of course. That's one of our core focuses. So we have a lot of documentation that's described how to do various things. We have a lot of coding projects that help you test for vulnerabilities or help you prevent vulnerabilities, education, etc. We have a chapters program it's growing very nicely, and then we have the conferences around the world. I'm the OWASP conferences chair, and actually this is the first U.S. conference that I personally have not organized. Tom did, so kudos to him for getting this organized. And Sebastian has done the same thing in Europe, so they're helping me out there. We also have a bunch of other conferences around the world as well. So one of the things we've had for a long time is this quality level concept at OWASP, where we have alpha projects, beta projects, and release quality projects. But for the first 5 or 6 years, that was just sort of like a rough estimate of, well, that looks like a beta and that looks like a release, so we put it in there. Well, in the past year, we've actually defined actual criteria for what it means to be an alpha, beta, and release quality project. And we are in the process during the next 6 to 12 months to go through all existing projects and make sure they're in the right category and encourage the active projects to move up in quality so they're a better product for you guys to use. We also admittedly have a lot of dead projects on OWASP that have been there for 3 or 4 years, they haven't changed in a long time, and maybe never got out of alpha stage. So one of the things we want to do is go through the knowledge repository we got in the projects and organize them into the projects that are really ready for you guys to use, and shove off to the side those that have died or they're really just not ready for prime time. So related to increasing the quality, now that we've got this criteria, all the Summer of Code participants that we do, or Season of Code, we actually do them in various seasons depending on our timing, are all being encouraged to, by the time they're done with their brand new project in the Season of Code, it needs to get to beta quality at least. If it's already an existing project, which we have lots of them in Summer of Code, like all the various guides that you see here, if they were already beta when they started, then they need to get to release quality by the time they get through the next Season of Code project. We're also producing these in book form. We did that a year ago in San Jose, was the first versions of the books, but now we've actually got criteria on the quality levels. We've got some professional covers that we've put together. These books you can get in hard copy like this for the cost of printing the book. OWASP doesn't make any money when you print these out. You can also download them as PDFs for free, of course, like everything else. We've also started providing support to our hundreds of volunteers. So we've actually have enough funding now that we can hire employees. So a year ago, we just announced our first employee. Now we have effectively 3 full-time employees split across 4 people. We have an executive director who helps manage everything that we're doing. That's Kate Hardman. Paolo Combria, who Dennis Cruz found in the UK, is our project manager. He's helping all the projects with how to work with OWASP, how to improve their quality, how to organize teams of contributors to push things forward, and that's having massive impacts on the projects we're doing. Some of the projects are having 30, 40, 50 participants on a single project, like the testing guide, for example. And the Spanish translations had a huge team of people working on those as well. OWASP is focusing right now on providing infrastructure so volunteers who want to come in and do cool stuff can focus on what's interesting for them, and we'll try to take care of the more mundane things like technical editing, project management, financial management, dealing with the wiki, things like that. We are now looking to add a team of programmers to OWASP. Some of them might be hired interns. They might eventually be an employee. We're probably going to initially start doing this as like a season of code kind of thing where we have a certain amount of funding and we go quarter to quarter to see what they can contribute. And by doing that, we'll vet various teams and get the best value for OWASP money. And Dennis is going to talk a little bit about that as well. So this is just our wiki page on our quality levels. We've got quality levels for both tools and projects and our documentation. And we're going to go through all the OS projects over the next 12 months and make sure they're all categorized in the right place and encourage them to move up the quality ladder so that they're easier for you guys to use. One of the big things we're focusing on in the wiki, again, is improving the quality. Well, right now we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of projects and things like that. And we're trying to organize the core of our knowledge base into 4 key components. We've always had this, the very first guide that OWASP ever wrote was the guide on how to build secure software. That was one of the leading projects way back in 2002. And since then, we've been working on a code review guide and a testing guide. And then we also had just sort of all kinds of articles all over the place. Well, the application security desk reference that Jeff mentioned earlier is our focus to organize the sort of the basic information all in one place, and then we're going to pull that basic information out of the guides and have them simply refer to the desk reference. So when you go to the code review guide and you're trying to figure out how do I find cross-site scripting flaws, you're not going to have this huge treatise on what cross-site scripting is. It's going to be in the desk reference. So we're trying to pull out redundant information, get it all in one place, have these documents interlink to each other so that when you're going on the wiki, you can navigate around really quickly to say, well, how do I review code? Then how do I build it right in the first place? And how do I, if I'm doing testing, and to navigate around on the wiki. And then we're also going to, of course, produce them in book form that you can download and use as well. So this is really organizing and massively improving the work that we have on the wiki. Lastly, community outreach is a huge focus of OWASP. Obviously, we want you guys to get more aware of application security, and if you already are aware, then we want you to be aware of the great tools and technology and documents that we have, and we want you to also share that with everyone else who needs to know this as well. So the chapters program, you can see around the world, we have over 100 chapters. And they get together once a month or once a quarter and talk about application security. I'm the conferences chair, so I'm kind of focused on all the various conferences we have around the world. So you can see in 2007 and 8 and 9, we've got a huge agenda of conferences. So we have about 6 or 7, I guess 7 international conferences every year. Basically, the way these work is some guy calls me from some continent like in India or Australia or whatever and says, I want to have a conference about OWASP. And we're like, great, how can we help you? And so we support them, and they organize these conferences. And so this is great. This is getting the OWASP word out to the world. So in India, they just had one last month. We have never been there. There's like 3 or 4 chapters there, a lot of dots there. There's actually 7 or 8. And they had, 250 people show up to learn about application security. So that was great. So we're all over the place, and we're continuing to grow. And I think we're really getting the word out there. And we need to improve our results, the work that we have, so that the people using this can take advantage of it as easy as possible. Sure. Yeah, there's also, those are the major conferences, right? And I don't want to offend anyone who thinks that there's minor ones, right? So there's a bunch of minor conferences as well too, right? So I know Colorado has one, I know Minnesota has one, there's probably a bunch of others that I'm not even aware of as well, right? So, and that's great. The grassroots mantra of OWASP is awesome. Somebody stands up in Colorado and says, I want a conference, and they go and do it. And we worked with them a little bit as well to help them, and that's great. So, I don't want to diss the size of the conference, whether it's 100 people or 1,000 people. As we grow, it's awesome. The more, the merrier, because I think local conferences really help that local community get the word out, and which I think is great. So anyway, that's all I had.
So hello again. I'm going to make it short and sweet for 2 quick reasons, because Dennis has a lot of content to get to. And we have about 10 minutes left before this track will be over, or this talk will be over. Real quick, just so you guys have a quick update for the agenda so we know how this continues on. This keynote was kind of geared to help educate you about OWASP, some of the things you don't know, fill in some of the blanks, and educate you in some of the things that are going on in the future. At 7 o'clock tonight, it's not on your track agenda, but at 7 o'clock tonight, upstairs, there will be a chapter leader, chapter member discussion open house, meaning kind of like when you guys are involved in the Denver chapter and you guys are involved in different chapters around the world. It'll be the time to talk openly about questions and answer sessions. So feel free to join us at 7 o'clock as well. That's actually going to be just before the party. So first we get to talk about things and we get to drink. So I think that'll be a good time. A couple points I think that need to be pointed out here is how to get involved in OWASP and how to join the mission, et cetera. And again, just to make it short and sweet, we have we have over 10,000 individuals on mailing lists around the world, as was pointed out. And we also have about 120 chapters, and it's growing. So the idea here is how do you get involved? I got involved in 2004. I got involved by doing nothing more than having a few people, 5 of us, get together with pizza and beer to talk about AppSec. And it kind of grew, and it kind of grew, and it kind of grew. And then the New Jersey chapter got really, really large, just based on peers and friends. And a lot of us are here today, which is really cool. We moved into the New York chapter, and that kind of grew. We have about 1,210, 15 members now in the New York metropolitan area for the New York chapter. So we have a very big group of people, and a large amount of them are actually here today. So thank you for continuing to be a part of the chapter. Other than that, I do have some changes in the agenda. I will get to them after the talk's over, so not to bore you, let me push over to Dennis. Thank you. Nice.
The way this works, right, is Jeff keeps the whole thing afloat. Dave has the financial kind of stability of all this. Tom handles governance. Sebastian handles things like education, and I spend all the money, right? So I come up with all the crazy ideas, right, to get the assets that we have, right, happening. And I view myself as an enabler. So if you guys want to do anything at OWASP, right, you guys talk to me, and I pass it through the board, right? It's pretty simple, right? And what happens was that we created this, right, which was the OWASP Grants Project. And the OWASP Grants Project happened about 4 years ago, whatever, in Belgium, where we literally was sat around at the chapter meeting table and we said we got 50K in the bank, US dollars, not pounds. And we said, what are we going to do with it? We're going to do a party, we're going to do some advertising campaign, or are we going to do some sponsorships? And we did. We did basically the OWASP Autumn of Code, gently ripped off from Google's Summer of Code. And it worked spectacularly, right? And we basically sort of grew from there. And what happened is we hit a great model for allocating OWASP resources. And what's interesting about this, and we have some more stuff that you guys can see, we're going to have a full list of sponsorship, etc. But it was a great way to get things done. It was a great way to get people involved in OWASP because we now had a very nice formal process. Of course, for the guys who done the first Autumn of Code and the Spring of Code, you realized that it was quite chaotic, right? But that's how we do things for the first couple of rounds. And then for the last one, because we already had our project manager, I could say that for the first time, I'm running a proper grant program. So for the Summer of Code, we got 31 projects. We have 70 reviewers, and it's really run professionally. If you guys go to the wiki, there is pages for everything. There's review, there's controls, there's checks, there's quality, and we're really pushing it. And the whole point is to really drive forward the quality of OWASP. So one of the things that we realized is that we have spent, as OWASP, about $250,000 in grants to open web applications, research. And we have more money, right? Because we have members and our conferences are profitable. So, it's not a matter of, having financial resources. It's a matter of what do you do with it. So you can see here where, the money went and the kind of grants we have and the kind of projects we have, and here's some more. And one of the things that we struggle spectacular at OWASP is to tell you, the community and our members and the people who really need and can use our resources what we have. So we came up with a great solution. Instead of actually completely overflowing this conference by adding 3 more tracks into it, because we have already 50 presentations we need to give, we decided to bring everybody, right? And this is the project management that you guys are going through, so it doesn't really matter. You guys can read it on the web. So we decided, right, and I'll come back to that one, sorry. We decided to bring everybody to Portugal. So what we're doing, and basically, this is a very important story because it's the way OWASP works. Me and Paulo Coimbra, right, we're on a train from Poland, because we were representing OWASP on the conference, to the Belgium conference. We were literally on a train, right? And we basically, this was the chain of command or thought. Hey, we got 70 guys reviewing, and they're actually really good. Oh, that means we have 100 guys currently working OWASP projects. How the hell are we going to advertise all this? How are we going to get all our guys to understand what's there? So why don't we bring them all together? Oh, why don't we bring a summit? Well, if we're all going to go together, why don't we have some working sessions? Okay, how much do we need? All right, we come up with this idea of $150,000. I called these guys. Jeff was not there, so I called Jeff. Dave was there, you know, and we basically said, I want to spend this money. I want to get a summit. We're going to do it, and it happened. And that's like the chain of command, or almost like how you can get things done in OWASP. You have a good idea, somebody takes responsibility for it, it makes sense, it's well thought out, and you know, I hope that with all the planning you can see that we actually sort of know what we're doing, we can make things happen. So the summit is the place to be, right, in November, and you know, we're basically going to have a very nice hotel for you guys by the seafront, right, is the place to be to understand about OWASP. If you want to learn about OWASP, you want to know what OWASP can do, if you want to meet all the guys, right, that created all of this, is the place where you can meet every single one of this. And we also have 2 days of working sessions. So the whole idea is that, if, you know, usually at these conferences, I always have people who come up with ideas and they say, what about this, what about that, how can you do this, and you guys should be doing this. Now we got a workflow, and the workflow is very simple. You come to Portugal, you set up a working session, you grab these guys who are all going to be there, right? And then you come up with a plan, and then we approve it, and then you can get on and do it. So it's that simple. And this is, you know, we have a bunch of training courses, and I'm really excited to finally also have training courses that are completely OWASP related. Like at least half of these training courses are delivered by our leaders. So, you know, at the moment our training courses are great, but it's still, you know, we still have mostly our commercial, you know, training courses, which we need to have because they're the best in the industry. But you know, if you look at a lot of these ones, we have a lot of training courses that are completely OWASP specific. So we also have the working sessions, which for me are a great opportunity to get things done. You know, this is where we can actually get all together, you know, in a meeting room, 10, 15, 20, 50 people, doesn't matter, and get in there with a plan, with an agreement, and then, you know what we're doing. And I think this is really key for OWASP, because this is what allows us to, like we said, I want to set the AppSec agenda for 2009. So we can get, by the end of 2009, we can say, yeah, we make a difference because we had a plan. And the reality at the moment is nobody has a plan for 2009. Nobody, you know, we don't have strategic objectives. You know, it's like everything is sort of in the air. So that's our agenda. You can see we're going to be presenting just about, you know, everything that's there. That's our sponsors. And we're also doing something which is interesting, is we already doing some joint events in Portugal in collaboration with this, with the summit. Because the reality is that we are paying, OWASP is paying 70 guys to go to Portugal, right? So that means we have 70 hardcore OWASP leaders in Portugal. Well, it's very easy to grab 4 of those and send them to a local university and do a one-day event. And it's great, give us kudos, you know, we do more connection with universities, and it works quite well. So this is our costs, that's our training options. We got a great deal, so if you guys going and staying in a hotel, we got basically these 2 massive rows of apartments, so everybody's staying together, and we managed to negotiate for 300 euros if you share, or 500 or 600 euros if you want a room by yourself. So that's a 5-star hotel, everything included. So it's a pretty cool deal. So the only thing I want to finish off, which I was here, sorry, go back, which is, come on, that. Okay, so just to wrap up, so the summit, you know, we're going to put all this stuff around. The main team is over there, so please enroll. We have a couple of special deals for this conference. So if you guys want to go, you don't have to pay now, but we really would like you to commit. So we have a feel for, you know, the people who are going and which working sessions you want. And if you want to start a working session, it's as simple as telling us the title, take responsibility for it, and go and do it. So we're over there. We also have free books. So all these books, right, you guys can come and pick up a couple of copies. We also have a couple of the Spanish translation, which, you know, still in the mailroom, so you can grab it. And the final point that I would like to make is we want to hire some developers to provide to our members. So the whole idea is this: we're going to make a pot of money available, $15,000 per quarter, for either an individual, a team, or a commercial company to provide those services to OWASP projects. Now, we already have a bit of a laundry list from the wiki, so we can keep the guys busy at least for a month or two. But the whole point is that we're going to be providing more and more and more and more services to our projects. And I think it's a very important concept that OWASP is doing. You know, follows up on all the services we're providing. And again, if you feel that you need something, you know, basically it's up to you. One of the things that I want to stress is the people who are in any kind of position of leadership in OWASP are all there because they were proactive. You know, there's no coincidence that Tom is in the board because Tom organized this. Sebastian organized the Belgium conference. It's usually the people who get given the responsibility are the people who are proactive and do stuff. So I'll pass it to Sebastian and you can wrap it up.
Thank you very much, Dennis. That's unusually short. I'm very thrilled to be here. I really think of OWASP, I compare this with like Second Life. And in a lot of ways this is really true. A lot of people are doing this as their second job. They're putting a lot of time and energy in it for free as volunteers. But it's also like a virtual community. And there's a danger in that, so that we have like this disconnect with the real world. But really have to like make sure that what we do, that we like educate this to the real world and make sure that people who actually use our tools and the products that we are creating. So I'm very pleased that part of the things that we do is the education project is that a lot of the sessions in the summit is really about OWASP projects. So that's very, very good. Next to that, one last thing. I know there's a lot of chapter leaders around here. Maybe if there's chapter leaders, can you stand up, please? So these are really the guys who make this happen. Give them a big applause. And the project leaders as well, of course, so but it's you who are doing it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the conference.